Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for the UFC London Main Event, Tom Aspinall against Curtis Blaydes. So I'm hoping by now that you've all checked out my breakdown show on the BT Sport channel. The main events, whenever I do a breakdown show, when I do a War Room, it's always this is my expansion of my thinking, because I always record that first, and that goes up, that goes away, a week or two ahead. Well, 2 weeks ahead of the event, and after it's gone up, I have a bit more time to sit and process and digest and think, I should have said that, I didn't say this. There's a lot of interesting stuff about this Blaydes Aspinall fight. Of course, it's a massive opportunity for Tom Aspinall, but it's also a really risky fight because Blaydes is dominant when it comes to wrestling. He's landed 62 takedowns overall in his UFC career, which is outstanding, and it puts him at the very top of the takedown leaderboard for heavyweights, clearly. It also puts him in the top 10 of all the weight classes, and he's the only heavyweight in there. Everybody else in there is welterweight and below. So you're looking at a heavyweight that's walking onto the scales at the limit, and he's got an output for takedowns that is comparable to the likes of Colby Covington, which is amazing when you think about it. When he fought Volkov, he landed 14 takedowns. He got Mark Hunt with 10 takedowns. Now, Tom Aspinall's got 100% takedown defense. He's very, very difficult. He's very fleet of foot. He's very agile. He's very confident as well, which allows him to stay relaxed and to react immediately instead of being tense and overthinking it and then, stalling yourself and getting caught. I do expect him to be under some wrestling pressure, though, in this fight, especially if it goes past the first couple of minutes. Tom has got a record of 12-2. A quick tail of the tape. So Tom's record is 12-2 with 9 knockouts and 3 submissions. So he's not going the distance in his fights. His 2 losses are both in the second round. One of them's a DQ for downward elbows, and the other one's a heel hook. Never been past the second round. So if I'm Curtis Blaydes, knowing I can land 14 takedowns in 25 minutes, then I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to drag this fight into the later rounds and at least put Tom in a position where he's never been before. Second of all, Tom is a very fast, explosive fighter that it hits hard and has got good submission skills. So the longer this fight goes, the more they will hopefully fade if you're Curtis Blaydes. And the more you force him to wrestle and defend and expend energy, the more his arms are going to fill up with lactic acid, dealing with a 265-pound wrestler, and then everything becomes more problematic, from throwing punches to squeezing submissions. Blaydes, on the other side, 16-3 is his record. He's got 11 TKOs on his record. The majority of the time, it's about putting somebody on the ground and smashing them to bits with elbows. He's got wicked elbows, very, very dangerous. From every position, within, sort of 6 inches of build-up, he can land an elbow that will cut you open and will be the beginning of the end of the fight. What he did to Overeem was, you watch one elbow and you see the cut open, you think to yourself, I hope he doesn't have to take any more of these. But in the moment, you can't stop him landing 3 or 4 more because of his speed and his power and his control of the bang, bang. That is a real danger for Tom Aspinall if ever he finds himself in the bottom position in this. Blaydes, on the other hand, although of course he comes from a wrestling background and that is his main strength, he does have decent striking. We've seen his striking develop, and because whenever he steps forward on his opponent, they expect him to level change. He's got that secondary attack where he can freeze them for a moment, he can step forward and they drop their hands and he can hit them with the 1-2, and then he can step forward like he's going to punch and level change. Like giving him those basic punches has really served his game well. And against Chris Daukaus, we saw not only is he able to now start landing these punches clean, we saw it in JDS fight as well, he's now starting to land them precisely as well. He's now starting to land them efficiently against strikers who I would consider to be, technically better than him. Daukaus and JDS, I would say they're both better boxers overall. Technically, if you watch them hitting the bag or hitting pads or sparring, you would look at them and go, well, they've got the better hands. But because of the lack of emotion, the lack of desire to really do damage, the way that he throws them is efficient. He places his punches, but because he's a heavyweight and because he's throwing them with good technique, they're landing and they're knocking people out. So that's going to be an additional challenge for Tom Aspinall, not only to determine whether he's going to be level changing for a takedown or whether he's going to be throwing the fast 1-2. Now, I do feel like Tom is going to be quicker, but he still has to make the call to react. You know, if you're a goalkeeper in a football game, as soon as that person steps towards the penalty spot to kick the ball, you've got to make a decision which way they're going to go. Like, your ability to react and to pick the right side of the goal that you need to dive to stop that ball, you've got milliseconds, and you've got to think how much speed and power these guys can generate in a small distance. It gives you very little time to determine whether you're going to be punched in the face or taken down. And a lot of the time at heavyweight, the takedowns and the submissions, you have to take into account the momentum and the force behind them. Because heavyweights don't necessarily have to chain their takedowns together quite as much as the lighter weights. They can blast through people, big, massive, powerful takedowns where the momentum of two 265-pound guys moving in one direction is enough to just, shake the entire octagon when they land. And with Tom Aspinall against Volkov, just like when Frank Mir was clamped onto submissions, if he gets a hold of an arm or a neck, the compression that he can generate gives you that moment where you go, this is going to snap, tap, tap. Ankles, arms, even a neck crank or whatever. I mean, you can feel like your head's going to pop. Like, there's going to be moments where Curtis Blaydes, if he's not careful, might get caught in something that Tom Aspinall will be able to crank. I mean, if I'm Tom Aspinall and I'm adding something to my game in this one, I would say that Kimura traps would be really useful, because that is something that you can utilize in motion as someone's close distance and got their arms around your legs. And Kimura traps are useful in any weight class, but at heavyweight, with that strength to just crank it, look at what Ngannou did with that Kimura against Anthony Hamilton. My brain's racing now, but you know what I mean. Like, there's a strength element of a heavyweight that I don't think is as transferable down the weight classes. And Tom Aspinall has got good submissions. You know, he's got a ground game that we've not even really seen a fraction of yet. I also feel like Curtis Blaydes is developing all the time, but I just don't think he's focused on submissions. So I think his output would probably reflect his training. I don't think he's interested in submissions, so I therefore don't think he's probably working with attacking too many submissions in his game. I feel like his training is probably primarily focused on holding down and beating people up, because that's what he does. With Tom, I feel like he'll look to finish however he can and as efficiently as he can. And I feel like that's where you have to try and get inside the head of Tom a little bit and see what he's going to expect from Curtis Blaydes. Like, against Volkov, he did everything. You know, he stood and traded with him. He worked in and out ranges. His footwork was fantastic. He was able to time his takedowns to make it look easy. Like, he might be confident that he can go into any range with Curtis Blaydes, and I also wouldn't be surprised if he decides he wants to wrestle to prove that he can nail Curtis with takedowns. Like, Tom's takedown offense is 100%. Curtis' takedown offense is 33%. Sometimes good wrestlers just don't expect people to even try, because why would they? Because my wrestling's so good. Tom may have the skills and the power and the surprise factor to be able to ground this fight, and then that puts Curtis in a really awkward position where he might be turning and scrambling and defending his neck in positions that other people in training can't put him in. I mean, who's out wrestling Curtis in the gym? I don't know whether he's got people around him that can do that. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, so let me have a look what I need to talk about. So Curtis is the leader for control time. He's got 1 hour and 20 minutes of control in the top position. But then Tom, on the flip side, is the number one leader in the heavyweight division for no time spent on the bottom, 0% time. So that might be something that's under pressure in this one. I just feel like we're not really scratching the surface of Tom Aspinall's game, and I don't really think we've seen the vast majority of what he's capable of. But I also don't think he's seen it because he's not been able to find the sparring partners or opponents. Like, he's been wrecking people in the first round. 12 wins on his record, 11 first-round finishes. The 1 second-round finish was Andrei Arlovski. And he dominated him in the first round, but then decided to switch up his tact and take him down and choke him in the second. And you're looking at seconds into the round. I mean, I've been bouncing this fight around in my head all week. I'm interested to know what you guys think in the comments. I expect a lot of Tom Aspinall, but I also know how good Curtis Blaydes is. I know how strong his wrestling is and how able he is to push over 25 minutes, which is a realm which we've never seen Tom breach before. Like, not making it to the end of the second round will give him confidence that he can stop everybody that he fights. But there is a point when that does run out, and you have to see a third and fourth and sometimes a fifth round. It's a massive, massive opportunity for Tom, but it's also a huge stepping stone, a big leap from the people that he's been fighting before. Not only because Curtis is, a prime heavyweight contender, ranked number 4 in the division, but also because of his skill set, what he brings to the table. Tom bookends it. He's probably got the striking advantage, speed and vocabulary of striking, and he's also probably got the advantage in jiu-jitsu if he can find places and space to use it. But I would say Blaydes overall is going to have the wrestling advantage. It's just whether Tom has enough to be able to combat it, or at least to be able to read it, to be able to react to it. It's going to be a great fight and another great main event for UFC London. The whole card's good. I've done a breakdown for Chris Curtis against Jack Hermansson. I've also done one for Paddy Pimblett against Jordan Levitt. If you haven't seen them, make sure you check them out. And leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know who you think is going to win and how. I think we've all got big expectations for Tom, but I also think we all know deep down, as much as everybody in London at the arena is going to be on Tom Aspinall's side, they're all going to be holding their breath in those moments, those first 30 seconds, to see if Curtis Blaydes can ground him. And if he can, it might be a very deflating evening for everybody in there. We'll see. It's either going to take the roof off it or the roof's going to come in. One or the other. I'm looking forward to it, though. Catch you next time.